More than 200 years ago, Americans fought a revolution against big government.
And has sent hither swarms of officials to harass our people and eat out their substance.
The host of our show, Mr. William Wagner, thank you for joining us.
I'm Ted Gunderson, former head of the F.B.I. in Southern California. Retired in 1979 after 27 and a half years. I furnished considerable information to B.J. Wagner. If you want the full story, you want to know what's going on, watch B.J. Wagner.
We've hidden justice somewhere in the law, and we can't find it.
Hi, I'm Destiny Davis, Playboy's Miss January 2005. Watch Mr. Wagner on Second Thought.
And I am William Wagner, that Ted Gunderson referred to as B.J. Wagner. I want to recommend this book by Michael Stickler. I'm already halfway through the second chapter. Its title is Cleveland Bundy, American Terrorist, cross that off, Patriot. And I highly recommend you get Stickler's book. He opens with Ryan Bundy's opening statement in the kangaroo trial held by that kangaroo judge known as Judge Gloria Navarro in her kangaroo court in Las Vegas. And there never should have been a trial. Basically, they tried to make this cowboy rancher of Nevada a criminal for doing nothing more than raising cattle on the public land where his ancestors had done it for 100 years. And if you want to see the full show I just did with Cliven last Friday, it'll be playing on Take Back America. This is on Second Thought, but it'll be playing on my other show, Take Back America, from now to mid-March. You want to catch it because it's the first time Cliven Bundy has been given a chance to actually tell his story without being twisted by Channel 8 in Las Vegas or some other media like Fox News or medias like CNN, which I also call Communist Negative News Network. Shane Buczek, it's been a decade since you have been here.
Almost 10 years. I can't believe how time flies.
10 years. Welcome back to the show. You have a new issue. It has to do with what? Mortgage foreclosure?
Yeah, we have a house that my family's built. My sister, my two brothers, my dad. Actually, we bought this property back in November '79. It was a little shack, probably 4 acres. They built it from foundation to cellar straight up. And HSBC, with a law firm out in Plainville, New York, Long Island, is in a process of trying to take the property away. Now, HSBC does not have the note.
They don't have the note.
They don't even have an assignment, and obviously don't have a mortgage. And the merits of the case, but basically, HSBC has an amazing record of fraud and funding of terrorism, and it's been going on for many, many years. They're not a well-liked bank, leaving aside that all the hanky-panky that goes on, and all you gotta do is Google search HSBC foreclosure fraud on Google or Startpage or whatever you use for search engines, and it's just page after page after page. The Department of Justice have already slammed them hard. The United States Attorney's Office went after them. They had to pay a lot of money.
Who had to pay a lot of money?
HSBC.
And they paid the money to who?
Obviously the government.
For what?
For fines, for foreclosure fraud, falsifying documents.
For blatant open fraud.
Open fraud, robo-signing, and the list goes on.
Wow.
And the New York Attorney General, upstate New York, also had a pretty big case. If you ever get a chance, check it out. You can Google search that too.
Was that Schneiderman?
Yes, I believe that.
State Attorney General Schneiderman?
New York Attorney General.
Yeah.
Yep, and it just happened recently, I think 3 years ago. It's not that old.
He's one of the few attorney generals that have held these crook fraudsters to account. Taking my hat off for you people that tuned in today at 12 noon. This is a live show at 12 noon on Wednesday, February the 21st. It's amazing. It's precisely 3 years and a day since that young black man, Anthony Williams, was on this show, and he was trying to stop multiple fraudulent foreclosures. And a crooked judge in Florida, I can only say he's a crooked judge because he put Anthony in jail for trying to help Mrs. Higginbottom save her house in Florida. He also went to Hawaii. So the judge had him arrested for, quote, practicing law without a license. And there's two things wrong with that. Number one, nobody can have a license to practice law. What they have is a bar card issued by their private club known as the Bar Association. A license, by definition, must be granted by a government employee. No bar association gets paid by the state. They collect dues from their members. So it's a private club like the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the Elks Lodge, the Moose Lodge, the Bar Association, all private clubs, okay? So when the judge said he's practicing law without a license, that's a screwing with the language. Nobody can have a plumber has a license because the license is issued by the county or the state authority that issues plumber's license. A doctor has a license, it's issued by a medical employee of the state, but there is no law licensed government employee who issues licenses. In fact, the Supreme Court has ruled, and I'm sure Shane knows this, the SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, has said over and over and over, the right to practice law is a common law right. It's not a privilege, it's a right. So what is wrong with this screwy judge in Florida putting Anthony Williams in jail? And I hope you will take a minute right now. You've got about 1 hour to call 202-456-1111 and just say to the Trump comment line operator, please ask President Trump to grant full unconditional pardon to Anthony Williams, who's now in a federal jail in Hawaii, fighting valiantly, but the judges are ignoring all his motions because they want him to hire a bar-carded private attorney. Attorney means to turn, which means to twist, and they twist the law really well. But please call for Anthony Williams, young black man who was right here 3 years ago. His only crime was trying to help homeowners stay in their own homes and show the judges the fraud in the court system and the paperwork that these bank gangsters, like his bank, which is called what,
HSBC,
HSBC.
USANA, which they operate under all these different entities.
So make that call, 202-456-1111. That's 4 ones, 456-1111. Anthony Williams is a fine young American being persecuted just like that white Nevada rancher cowboy, Cliven Bundy, who was sitting right here next to me just last Friday. He spent 700 days and was convicted of nothing. 700 days in private and federal jails and prisons and was convicted of nothing. And his two sons stood 2 trials, one in Oregon, jury acquitted them completely, and again in Las Vegas. Now Shane here, he's from Buffalo, New York. His parents have this house. They rebuilt the house from the ground up. You want to pay attention, but please make that call, 202-456-1111, and say, please tell Trump full unconditional pardon for Anthony Williams. Now, there is a mortgage I had on my house here in Santa Maria, California. It was called Countrywide. And they were considered one of the best, one of the most stable banking things for mortgage. And we're going to have a guy call in here in a few minutes that's going to tell you why Countrywide went under and how they pinned the rap on him. So the real criminal who was at the top, isn't that basically the story?
Yes.
The guy at the top, a guy named Frank got, I think it was Loretta Lynch,
Yes.
was U.S. Attorney General, I think under either Obama or,
It would have been Obama.
yeah, okay, Obama or Bush, same thing, different.
Doesn't matter.
Different color skin, they're both
Right.
puppets of the banks. Anyway, she let Frank walk free. According to the guy who's going to call in here, Frank gets to walk free after attempting to take a $2 billion cash advance for his own self. That's called a golden parachute, only it wasn't authorized. We'll find out whether he got away with it. But Frank got away and was never punished for anything. This lower level mortgage broker, they dropped the ball on him, and he paid for only his trivial mistakes, but for Frank's major crimes. So I really wish you would pay attention and make that call to the President Trump comment line at 202-456-1111. And I hope you get this book by Michael Stickler, who spent time in the jail cell with Cliven Bundy. And Cliven was convicted of nothing after being held in the most horrendous circumstances and he told me later, it took 5 hours. They got him up in the morning, 5 hours from the time they woke him up, put shackles on him, hand and foot and chest, so he couldn't move, couldn't wiggle, couldn't scratch his ear without a lot of effort. And it took 5 hours chained up like this to get him to the courthouse, where he got to say almost nothing because he had an attorney named Brett Whipple. And then they would shackle him up another 5 hours or 10 hours a day, just being shackled. This is cruel and unusual punishment. What was Cliven's alleged crime? Running cattle on Nevada public land. But the Fed said it's our land. You can't do it. Well, if you watch that show I did with Bundy, it'll be running for a month from now on Take Back America. We'll give you the schedule before we close. You want to catch that. It'll be on tomorrow night, I believe, at 7:30 on Thursday evening. It'll be on at 7:30 p.m. and I will give you the rest of the schedule. Tell me more about this bank's trying to steal your parents. When did it start?
Well, it all started back in November 2014, and I was already doing pre-investigation on it. Within 2 months, I found out some pretty startling information that HSBC purchased this from Republic Bank that went out of business back in 1994, but Republic Bank, this is amazing, transferred it into a Remick trust and already splotted it and sold it and transferred it. And that's when all that security fraud was taking place back, before 2008. Yeah, all that stuff started back in the 90s, and they did not get caught until about 2006, 7.
Yeah.
And then everybody found out about it. But so our note is long gone from the property, leaving aside they made millions of dollars on the note. And these guys are good. Not only do they sell the note and transfer it and sell it and transfer it and sell it, but they also, very smart, they don't pay any taxes. Because
They
put it
didn't pay any
zero
taxes?
taxes. And
Whoa.
now that would obviously be brought up for trial, but the judge, Emilio in Buffalo, New York, decided to say, hey, we're just going to grant summary judgment to HSBC. We don't care if they have the note. We don't care if they have the assignment. We don't care about anything, because I'm getting a nice pocket full of cash here, and we're just going to steal your house here. That's what they do all around the country. And, luckily we know exactly how to get to the appellate court and work our way up the system. A lot of people don't know how to do that. So that case is still pending, and it's going to be pending for a long time, but which is really amazing, is they have no standing or capacity to even go forward. We are now getting a live call from Michael Buczek from the...
Yeah, take the call.
Okay. Good afternoon.
You have a prepaid call. You will not be charged for this call from
Michael Buczek,
an inmate at a federal prison. This call is being recorded and is subject to monitoring.
Michael.
Hey.
Okay, we are live on air right now in the studios. I'm going to let William take it away.
Okay, can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can. How am I coming through?
You're fine. I hear you loud and clear. Your name again is?
Michael Buczek.
And you're in what federal prison right now?
Well, I started out in Loretto. Right now I'm at Petersburg, Virginia.
Okay, and they moved you to one of the prison camps, which is a little less horrific?
Yeah, actually the prison camp is a lot nicer than the conditions we had up at the Low in the prison up there. It's a little more freedom. Food is a lot better. It's a lot nicer place to be. It took me 7 years at the other prison, at the Low classification, to get to the camp where I'm at now.
Wow. Okay, what can you tell us about Countrywide that went belly up and got swallowed up by another bank, and your position?
The big question I've got, and this is all verifiable through actually the Wall Street Journal had a pretty good article about it. Countrywide itself, before it was absorbed by Bank of America, and this is what Wall Street Journal talks about as well, had a $2 billion credit line that they had to tap in just before they went completely under. Mozilla was the president of Countrywide at the time. Now, I guarantee you, if you or I or anyone else out there, any of your other viewers out there, had a close enough relationship with the bank to have a $2 billion credit line, that bank would be aware of our financial status before we were allowed to clear out that credit line. Now, what Countrywide did was take everything out of that $2 billion credit line back during the time of the America and used that to try and stay afloat. Now, there's no way that Bank of America's leadership didn't know that Countrywide was insolvent at that time and still allowed them to take that $2 billion from Bank of A and then covered up this fraud by absorbing Countrywide into Bank of America through a merger and through an acquisition. Now, if we flash forward to today, before the last election, Countrywide's founder and president, Mazzillo, was indicted, and the government had everything and all the evidence it needed and actually had his trial scheduled to begin.
What year?
But Loretto, it was in the Ninth Circuit, I believe, so it would have been out there in California.
Right. Do you remember the year? Do you remember what year that was? Mazzillo was scheduled for trial?
Well, I believe Van Nuys is where the company was based out of, and
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure exactly what district court that would be, but it would all be verifiable through the Ninth District. You could look up the name on the PACER system, which is all public access.
So that'd be about 2006.
This would have been very recently. This would have been, this case was supposed to have started when Obama was still president. Loretta Lynch was still the Attorney General, because this was covered too in a Wall Street Journal article, if I remember. I can't remember the exact time, but Loretta Lynch ordered that everything just be forgotten about, forgiven,
Wow.
and no charges. Completely. This is after, of course, he took his $2 billion, but
So-
before President Trump was in. I'm not even sure that President Trump is aware of this.
I doubt that he is aware of it.
No.
That this actually occurred, because it was something that I would think that Mr. Sessions and Mr. Trump would want to pursue, especially with all the slack that he's getting right now from these people.
Yeah, I think he would want to pursue this. $2 billion. And did Frank actually get away with the $2 billion then?
Yeah, that never got. What happened was Bank of America actually absorbed Countrywide, even though they were bankrupt, after they let them take the $2 billion and make it look like it was a great merger of them taking over this mortgage company. And they took over all these mortgages and fraudulent mortgages that
Wow.
Mazzillo and that
Wow.
Countrywide had actually performed. Now, the $2 billion is nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. This was just them making a cash grab at the end.
Yeah.
There are billions and billions of dollars of fraudulent mortgages that were made by Countrywide that Bank of America absorbed, and that Bank of America is trying to foreclose on right now, even though Countrywide made these loans.
Mike, do you want to
So,
Mike, just real quick, all the viewers want to know who you are.
Well, I'm in prison right now because I pled guilty to what they call honest services fraud. Now, when I pled guilty, I did this on the advice of my attorney because I had been indicted, and there were 4 superseding indictments. Each time they kept raising the dollar amount so that I would be looking at a lot longer sentence than what I got. I'm in right now 19 years. I received a 19-year sentence, but on March 3rd of 2009, I pled guilty to the 4th superseding indictment under what they call 18 U.S.C. 1346, honest services fraud. Now, that was in 2009. On June 24th of 2010,
This call is from a federal prison.
there's some proof of where I'm at right there for you guys.
Yeah, we got that, Mike.
Now, on June 24th of 2010, the Supreme Court heard its case regarding Jeffrey Skilling, who was part of the Enron deal. And the Supreme Court came out with a 9-0 vote that said any application of 1346, which I'm convicted under, does not include briberies and kickbacks, is a violation of due process under the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Now, this was 2010. Yet in 2011, I was convicted and sentenced to 19 years of prison based upon a prohibited application of 1346 in light of the Skilling decision. Now, my attorney knew this, the prosecutors knew this, even the judge would have had to have known this, because he has to know when he sentences me what he's sentencing me to. I had never pled guilty to bribery or kickbacks. I was never charged with bribery or kickbacks, and there was never any proof by the government of any bribery and kickbacks, because there weren't any bribery and kickbacks involved in this case at all. Yet I'm doing 19 years in prison for a prohibited application of briberies and kickbacks under 1346. And I cannot get anyone to pay any attention to this. I filed an appeal with the court-appointed appellate attorney, and she never raised the issue that the law had changed, and that I'm in here for decriminalized conduct. So that, in a nutshell, is where I'm at. I believe why I'm in here is what I know more than more than anything.
Mike, I think it's a given you did not have adequate legal representation. I think it's a given you did not understand the law at the time you signed the paperwork, and basically you signed a contract to go to prison, but you didn't know that.
And I think that's a fair presentation of what happened. I was completely unknowledgeable. I was completely relying upon court-appointed attorneys whose deal was to get me to sign a plea agreement that said, take this.
Yeah, they love plea agreements.
I was misled as to the timing, and I was misled as to the elements of the offense, because the elements of the offense are not there. Now, I didn't find this out until I was already in prison and until I filed my appeal with my appellate attorney. After she filed that appeal for me, I found out that the crime I'm in here for was decriminalized. She never raised the issue. She knew it as well.
Yeah, well, that's why I say I call them the bar-carded mafia. They're all part of a club to make money from our pain and suffering. They couldn't care a hoot whether you're innocent or guilty. That's irrelevant. But I got to ask you one question. I think it's a fair question. Looking back at your pre-arrest time and what you were doing as, I guess, a mortgage broker, did you, in your own mind, ever do any little thing that was not quite straight up and honest, that could have got you into this mess?
Oh, well, with what I'm convicted of, that's a different issue. But as far as working in the mortgage industry, the entire thing is extremely fraudulent. The mortgage industry, there's nobody in the mortgage industry that isn't committing some type of fraud.
Thank you.
Exactly.
The mortgage brokers and lower end people like myself work for these large, big banking institutions that never get indicted and never go to prison.
Right.
If they do get to the point where they are indicted and they have committed criminal acts and they get charged and they go to trial, somebody like Loretta Lynch or somebody in the U.S. government who got their job through the banking system, because the banks pay the same amount of money to the Democratic Party that they do to the Republican Party.
Exactly. Thank you.
These guys get their cases dropped. And this was a case of the government had all the evidence. From my understanding, the prosecutor out there in California was dumbstruck by the fact that he was told to drop this case when he had the case wrapped up. You know, the federal government doesn't go to trial without having a whole lot of evidence. They try and get us to take these pleas.
Right. If they don't have evidence, they'll manufacture it.
That's right.
They'll make it up as they go.
That's true. That's true.
So we basically have criminals running our entire justice system, from the judges to the...
This call is from a federal prison.
Thank you.
There's
Thank
my
you.
ID card again.
Yeah, thank you, prison lady, for reminding us.
We're down to 3 minutes.
We only got 3 minutes. What do you want to get said here, Mike?
Well, I guess that was it. I just wanted to let you guys know sort of what's going on, because had I been given a trial, all these names and all these people would have shown up in the paperwork.
Yeah.
The devil in the details of my case. And I think for that reason, that's why I was denied a trial. I tried to withdraw my guilty plea and demand that I go to trial because I said I was actually innocent at my sentencing.
Got it.
And I didn't know at the time that what I was charged with and convicted of was actually decriminalized.
Got it.
But they got me anyway, and I've been fighting it for 7 years. I'm just trying to find some way, some people
You need
let
to-
them know, and if there's a way I could get out of here.
You need to write to Tom Mesereau, who defended Michael Jackson, who was also 100% innocent. Knowing what you know now we got about 1 minute. Knowing what you know, should Loretta Lynch be indicted?
Well, I don't see how she could make this decision
That's a yes or no question, Mike.
legally. Legally.
Should she be indicted for
course.
letting the $2 billion bank gangster name, what's his name? Missoula.
There's so much more. There's so much more involved in that $2 billion. I think with Frank Mazzillo and his tens, if not hundreds of billions in fraudulent loans that he was involved in, that yes, he is a criminal. He was a criminal,
Thank
and
you.
the Bank of America is committing crimes by foreclosing on these houses. And for Loretta Lynch to let these people go, yes, that's criminal.
Tom Mesereau, are you listening out there? Tom Mesereau, are you listening? Donald
Yes.
Trump, are you listening?
Yes.
This guy's got no reason to lie. He's already in prison.
Hear us. Yes.
Mike Podesky, I want to thank you for calling in today. I guess our time is going to be up. There's the Trump comment line, 202-456-1111. Call them and leave a comment. Maybe Mike should be given a pardon after 7 years in prison. It's up to you people.
Hey,
Thank you, Mike.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate your show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. And you wanna, if anybody wants to write you or anything, you got an address or something?
Yeah,
or?
give us the address quick before you're gone.
I don't have the one because I just got here, but it is a federal prison camp in Petersburg, Virginia. It's available on the BOP webpage.
BOP.gov, that's correct. If you go to BOP.gov.
Okay, we still need your prison number. Text it and we'll edit it in later.
Yeah, your prison number.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Mike.
Number.
That was it.
Yeah.
They cut them off after 15 minutes. Now, just so you know, they do pay, I believe it's 25 cents a minute. So do the math. 25 cents a minute multiplied by 15 minutes, that's...
it's a couple bucks.
That's $3 or $4.
Just to tell you that information
just to
that you won't get on KCOY or NBC or ABC or CBS National News. They're not going to give you this information. But I hope you take it to heart because I don't run commercials. I'm not making money on bringing you this information. Don't make a dime. Don't believe me, ask my underpaid staff. They'll tell you I'm not making money on this. Get out the violin. But we'll buy him a hamburger and fries or something so our staff doesn't drop dead from starvation. I mean, that's Mike Podolsky. He's sitting in a federal prison camp, 7 years, and they just moved him to a more pleasant prison, probably one they reserved for President Nixon's White House staff that all went to prison. I can't even remember all their names, but some of them ended out here at Lompoc in California. So what do you want to add to that?
One thing I want to tell you, when I've had several communications with Mike, and this goes for Bank of America. Bank of America, he was telling me if he could just get out here and get the story on the news. But Bank of America, almost every one of their foreclosures, they don't have any of the paperwork whatsoever. It's already been bundled and sold. Bank of America, almost every one of their foreclosures are fraudulent. Now, leaving aside HSBC, I have an issue with my own family right now. HSBC, like, if you have a table, Bill,
yeah,
this table has to have legs to stand. It's called standing, and the attorneys talk about standing all the time, and a lot of the general public don't know what standing is. Well, if you don't have standing, you can't move forward in any type of case. Standing
means you personally must have an issue at stake in this thing. You can't just walk in off the street and say, I want to help defend this guy. I mean, or I want to bring charges. You've got to have an issue that ties you personally to the court issue. That's what standing is.
And in this case with my mom's property, she's had for over 40 years now, 89, 99, 2009. Okay, yeah, close to 40 years. Not only they have no standing.
The bank has no standing.
HSBC. I don't even like calling them a bank. It's a the
fraudsters.
It's a cartel. And it's not a bank. They don't loan you a penny. But that's another. I don't want to get too deep into all that. But what I want to say is this particular matter here, and probably with millions others, they don't have no note. They have no assignment. They have no mortgage. I mean, you talk about fraud. Rositzky out in Long Island, Plainville, New York, is a foreclosure mill. And if you people want to know exactly who they are, just watch The Sopranos on HBO. Even though it's gone, you can watch it on demand. But The Sopranos is a absolutely perfect example of that law firm. It's not even a firm. It's a mafia organization that basically rob and steal people's property. And I would say probably 99.99% of the foreclosures that they file in the state of New York. I don't understand why the U.S. Attorney's Office is doing nothing. I've already sent information to them. The New York Attorney General, they just ignore it. And I think, I have no proof of this as of right now, but I think all you do is put a little bit of cash in an envelope, slide it in your pocket over here, and hey, let's go to lunch.
I'm buying now that I got enough cash.
And I think that's what happened in this particular case, which we're going to be going to the appellate court and all that with this new judge in Buffalo. I don't think he really cared about the facts. They don't care.
They really don't.
They do not care. I had firsthand knowledge on how this judge acted, and I believe we might have a picture of him somewhere.
Judge named Emilio.
It starts with a C.
He's a fairly new judge.
Brand new.
So he may be somewhat innocent and not knowing what's going on, but Shane doesn't believe that.
No, absolutely not. In fact, he was put on the bench because he
would do
basically
the dirty
work. I don't really know all the details because he's so brand new, but I know he's establishment through and through. I've talked to some high-end people that are big Trump supporters or even Ron Paul supporters from back in the days, if you remember Ron Paul.
Oh, I do remember Ron Paul.
And-
That's why I
and
stopped voting. They cheated him out of the nomination.
You could give Ron Paul $1 trillion and he's still going to do the right thing. And that's one thing I liked about Ron Paul. But the thing is that he's establishment through and through. He doesn't care about the facts. You don't need a note. You don't need an assignment. You don't need an injury. You don't need nothing. But I need some cash. So slide that in my pocket right here. Here, see the little hole? Slide that in there. We'll go off some Japanese later on. Hit the day spa. Who knows? Maybe they go to strip clubs. I don't know what they do. All I know is the guy didn't care less about the facts.
Why don't we call Judge Emilio's clerk and ask him if his judge is a crook? Do we have a number we could call? I mean, it's back east. It'd be about 3:30. They might not have closed down shop yet. There's the judge. Hi, Judge Emilio. I like your smile.
As you can see here, he issued out an order.
He's brightening up just with the mentioning of $20,000. You see his face brighten up? I mean, just mentioning the money.
He issued an order on February the 15th of 2018. Basically,
that's just a few days ago.
Yeah, just recently. And if you look at the record, you compare the order, it doesn't match at all. And they don't have a note. They've admitted Soteris, a news servicer, admitted they don't have the note. They never had the note.
He's saying it went through MERS.
Right.
Mortgage
and
electronic.
MERS has nothing to do with it.
MERS is a way to avoid paying filing fees to your county clerk. And all the county clerks in America should be suing jointly MERS. Because when they register with MERS, what they're doing is dodging, getting around, and avoiding doing it properly. And the average public is supposed to know what is recorded, but the average public doesn't have access to MERS. So this is a scam to keep you in the dark so you don't know what's going on with your note. This is a good reason to buy a house all cash and never get a bank loan. Don't let the banks get involved at all. Unfortunately, most of you will never save up enough money to buy a house all cash. And so you end up buying a house, or you have one, and then you take a loan out, and they make 10 to 20 times the face amount of your mortgage note. They destroy the note. And by law, once they destroy your original note that you signed with your wet ink, once that original is destroyed, they have no right at all to foreclose on you. To make it really simple, let me put it this way. If you lend me a $100 bill, and you give me a $100 bill, and I take your $100 bill, I say, gee, that's a nice piece of money there. I like your $100 bill. Here it is. I got the $100 bill. Thank you very much. I like this $100 bill. And I'm going to use it for a week. Maybe I might lose it, might spend it, but a week from now you come to me and say, hey, Mr. Wagner, can I have my $100 bill back? And I say, oh, I don't have that, but I've got an affidavit of lost $100 bill, and that's just as good. Here's the affidavit of lost $100 bill. Go spend my affidavit. Or I give you a Xerox copy of it. You're going to say, no, Mr. Wagner, I don't want a Xerox copy of the $100 bill. I want the actual $100 bill. And I say, oh, well, I don't have it. So we go to a judge, and the judge says, oh, Mr. Wagner's a bank. He doesn't need the actual $100 bill. I don't care. We're just going to rule for Mr. Wagner. You're out $100, and that's the end of the story.
And you know what the sad thing was is that my mom was so nervous that she actually hired an attorney, Matt Lazio.
Oh, sad mistake.
And big mistake. And he says, oh, I'll take care of you. I'll file discovery. I'll do it. And it's even in the order. He says he failed to file anything, and he took the money. And I kind of like shied away from the attorney because the attorneys are not here to protect us. They're not here whatsoever. They're here to collect money.
That's it.
They don't care about, like, if it's a criminal case. They don't care if the case wasn't presented to the grand jury. They don't care if there was no criminal complaint filed. They don't care about direct accusers. I need $10,000. I'll do the best I can for you. Oh, by the way, you got to serve 2 years in federal prison.
Oh, yeah. He forgot to tell you do 2 years in prison.
Yeah. So although there's no criminal complaint, but don't worry about it. We need to make money off you. You'll be okay. Their food's okay.
That
You'll
food's
be okay.
kind of okay. Cold, distasteful, no salt and pepper.
And they're doing it a lot.
Why don't we give this judge a call? We got a few minutes before let's give him a call. Let's call him right now on live TV and just ask him why he probably won't get on the phone. We might get his clerk. Dial a number. Let me talk to him.
If he answers.
They're not answering.
Well, we got the other numbers here.
Mr. Roses, I am not at my desk right now. Please leave a message at the tone.
Hello, confidential law clerk. This is William Wagner. George S. DeRosa, I appreciate this, but we're doing a live television show right now. If you'd come on the line, I'd like to ask you some questions about Judge Emilio's ruling in a case about HSB Bank on a home where they lost the loan. They don't have the original loan note, and the assignment came from an institution that was already kaput and defunct. So how can a defunct institution grant an assignment to an existing institution? Appreciate if you'd come on the phone, George. We're waiting here, and this is live television. Or if Judge Emilio's there, we've got your smiling face up on the screen, and we'd like to talk to you, Judge Emilio. This has to do with the Buczek home, and the bank, which isn't really a bank, seems to be stealing it. And we're talking about the case of HSBC Bank USA NA, the plaintiff versus Deborah A. Buczek and all. We're waiting to get an answer. How can you issue an order and ignore the fact there was no note and the existing assignment came from an institution that was already defunct? I'd appreciate a call. The index number on this is 808-135/2015. 2015, I'm sorry. So you can call me back at 805-928-1100. The show will be off air probably by tomorrow, but I'd appreciate an answer anyway. Thank you very much. This is William Wagner for On Second Thought in Santa Maria, California, a long way from your jurisdiction, but we're going to put this up on YouTube, so I'd like an answer from you. How can you allow MERS to do this? And I'm sure MERS didn't pay any county recorder's fees. So get back to us. Thank you very much. William Wagner out. Well, we tried, people. Neither Judge Emilio, whose smiling face we already showed you, nor George, the law clerk, did not answer the phone. I believe that's a court in Buffalo, New York. But we tried. We tried. And the one thing is clear is that when you hire an attorney, you, in effect, contract with the bar-carded system. What is my point? My point is this is not we the people Article 3 constitutional courts. If they were we the people, you wouldn't have this guy that called in from the federal prison, Mike Podesky. You wouldn't have him sitting in prison for a law that was repealed. They repealed the law, and then they went and got him to cop a plea. He didn't know the law had been repealed at that time he signed, contracted. This is a RICO. The entire bar-carded club is a massive RICO operation. And we need, we the people type people, you, me, Shane, to form our own grand juries under what Justice Scalia, Antoine Scalia, wrote in U.S. versus Williams, which is 504 U.S. 36, a 1992 case, where they upheld the Supreme Court majority opinion that Scalia wrote, said, we the people have the right to create our own grand jury, not appointed by any judge, not appointed by any president or governor, not appointed by anyone. We the people, when we form that, we sign our oath of office, file it with the Secretary of State, whatever state you're in, or with the county clerk. There's Scalia. He wrote this opinion. It's 504 U.S. 36, U.S. versus William, a 1992 case. God bless Justice Scalia. Although a lot of people don't like a lot of things he wrote, he sure nailed this one. And what he was doing is not making new law. He was just reaffirming the existing law, that we the people always had the right. You have 13 or 14 or 15, up to 23 people that see a crime. You can get together, sign your oath of office, file it, and say, hey, we want that guy over there indicted. And we got 3 witnesses are testifying. We got the record. We voted. We want him indicted. Sheriff, go arrest him. The sheriff is obligated to go arrest that person. Now, most sheriffs are so intermeshed with the district attorney, they'll only listen to your elected DA, who himself is a criminal. Because as soon as the DA, that's your district attorney, joined the Bar Association, whether it's the New York Bar Association, the California Bar, the Texas Bar, the Alaska Bar, the Montana Bar, the Indiana Bar, doesn't matter which one. Those bars are all part of a foreign power. And under the original 13th Amendment that I've talked about so many times, the original 13th Amendment says if any citizen shall accept, take, claim any honor, or take a gratuity or emolument, which is payment, from any judge or foreign king, prince, or foreign power, they are incapable of holding office. So as soon as the DA joined the Bar Association, they lost their citizenship. Once they lost their citizenship, they can't hold office. But nobody wants you to know or understand this. I have spent years researching this. All the bar-carded criminals that research it, another name for bar-carded criminals is attorneys. They all know this, but they won't tell you because they'd be out of work. And they spent 3 or 4 years in law school so they could bamboozle you and steal your money. That's this, you know, if this guy that called in from the federal prison, you heard that automatic tone, this is a call from a federal prison, a pretty little female voice, you heard that. We didn't create that.
That was real.
That was real. That was a real call that came in.
It's not fake news.
This is not CBS or NBC or any of fake BS. And there is so much BS going and passing the corporate network media. That's why I'm not on corporate network media. That it's really hard. You got to really search to find the truth. They're not going to tell it to you just because they ought to, because that's the business they're in. They're all bought off. They're bought off by the banks to make them the multi-million-dollar loans to build a brand new NBC studio on the East Coast or the West Coast or Atlanta, Georgia, or out in Dallas, Texas. And then the day comes when that commercial loan has to be rolled over. And if they don't do what the banks want them to say, guess what happens to that loan? It doesn't get re-signed. Then they lose their studio and they're out of business.
Call the Chambers, the head Chambers in Buffalo, because I called him.
You want to call them?
We can try one more time.
All right.
Emilio.
His last name is Colcolaiacovo.
Here we go.
Detailed message. Someone will get back to you as soon as possible. If you need immediate assistance, you may dial Judy Connors, our court clerk, at 9401, or our law clerk, Mr. DeRosa, at 845-945. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Amy Garcia. I think you're the secretary for Judge Emilio. This is William Wagner doing a live show. I'm trying to get either Judge Emilio, and I don't want to say his last name because I'll mangle it and mispronounce it. I don't want to do that. But I want to get a question asked of him on this live show we're doing in California right now. Why, in the case of HSBC Bank USA NA plaintiff versus Deborah A. Buczek, they don't have the note, they don't have a valid assignment, and MERS is not by law a county clerk for which you register assignments. So how can Judge Emilio go forward with this? Call me back at 805-928-1100. Leave me a message. Our show will be over by then. This is a live TV show in California, but I still would like an answer. Thank you very much. So we tried. We tried. It's almost 4 o'clock, so they probably already powdering their nose and getting ready to brave the freezing weather back there, which really isn't freezing. This is not fair, Shane. We're having freezing weather here in sunny California, and you're having 60s. I don't understand.
I got a
this.
report from Buffalo, New York last night. It was 66 or 67 degrees, unheard of weather. And here you and I are shivering,
shivering at the
shivering
beach.
in California. And what was it, 45,
It was
46?
no, it's 42 and going down at sunset. And last night there was ice in my jacuzzi and ice on my top of my swimming pool for the second night in a row.
And that is one powerful ocean out there.
Yeah, we went to the Guadalupe Beach at the end of
very powerful
the road, and you don't want to go there. You don't swim there. You don't surf there. Too many people have died there, so I'm sorry I even mentioned it.
And you mentioned the Ten Commandments, which was interesting.
Yeah. You know, the thing about Cliven Bundy, and you'll see this when I get it up on YouTube, we did an interview, but it'll be airing tomorrow. But we talked about how his family had been in there for generations. He knew his grandparents' names, their grandmother's maiden names, how they came over the mountain from Utah and settled in this area in Nevada and been homesteading there since the 1870s. And then the feds came in. And here's the bottom line. You got to ask yourself a question. Why would the feds want to steal desert land that for years and years they did nuclear test bombing there in the 50s and the 60s? The desert tortoise survived the nuclear fallout. The cows survived the nuclear fallout. They're still selling the cattle meat. They're still raising and running cattle out there. They ran 52 other ranchers off the land. And Bundy, you know, this is the most God-fearing, God-loving man. Him and his son Ammon haven't even filed, at least Cliven hasn't, and I tried to get it out of him why he hasn't sued for wrongful imprisonment. He's just a very God-loving, forgiving person. 700 days in prison and convicted of nothing because he did nothing but raise cattle like his ancestors did. Hello? And he remembers all his, he obeyed the fourth commandment. You know what the fourth commandment is? Thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. And what they meant in the Hebrew, when you honor them, you made a remembrance of your parents and your grandparents and so on. You remembered who they were. Even if they weren't always nice people, you remembered them. That's honoring them. And he was rattling off his parents, his grandparents, or maiden grandmother's names. He was going back to his great-grandparents and his great-great-grandparents. That's honoring. That's keeping one of God's commandments. Just a wonderful, humble man, Cliven Bundy, who was just here last Friday. Now he's back in his Bunkerville ranch in Nevada, doing just what he was doing before the federal thugs, led by the thug with the kill list. We had an actual enumerated list of Bundys and militia to murder. His name was exposed by an officer named Wooten. And that was what I was shocked. I was surprised Friday. I didn't know that Wooten's letter to the defense attorneys had not yet got on the court record when that crooked judge, Gloria Navarro, who I think was a baby when her parents came over from Cuba or someplace like that. And I got to invite Gloria to come on the show. I got to give the judge a chance to say her 2 cents. But in my mind, Cliven Bundy should be up on Mount Rushmore, like you're seeing on the screen right there. He's the guy in the far right there with the cowboy hat. He should be right next to Abraham Lincoln because he did more to hold on to land rights than any president. Lincoln didn't do that. Teddy Roosevelt didn't do that. George Washington didn't do that. In fact, George Washington, though I like George Washington for winning the Revolutionary War, one of the things they don't tell you about George is after he went to Congress and said, hey, I really didn't get paid anything for being the winning general. And I really suffered, which I believe George did. He was away from Mount. There's Emilio. I hope you call us back, Emilio. Call me back, Emilio. I want the answers to why you're ignoring the obvious law. See, I'm not just any dummy, Emilio. I went to law school. I actually went to law school for 3 years, decided not to take the bar, not to become an attorney. that was a positive life choice in my view, because I didn't want to become part of the mafia crook of robber barons known as the Bar Association, which is being sued, by the way. And I hope they're put out of business. I hope all their bar leaders go to jail. They should all be in jail, along with some other criminals that influence them. But that's a different issue. We're not going to go into that right now. Again, I recommend Michael J.L. Stickler's book, Cleveland Bundy, American Patriot, or Terrorist if you're a government thug, by Michael L. Stickler, who was in jail for something unrelated and was in the same cell with Cleveland. And he spent his time well. He took notes and he wrote a book. As far as I've got, the book seems to be following the truth. Cliven Bundy, the American/terrorist, actual patriot. And that's Cliven on the cover. It's a good book, worth reading. At least I'm not quite to chapter 2 yet, but from what I have read, and he quotes Cleveland's son Ryan, who made his own opening statement in Las Vegas kangaroo court of Gloria Navarro, the kangaroo judge in that kangaroo court. And Cleveland likes Gloria because in the end, she did the right thing, though he would have preferred she let the jury find him not guilty. Gloria wasn't going to let any more bad information get on the court record in her court, because what was coming out was stuff you could use to indict the federal agents, and they should be indicted. The FBI should be indicted. Comey should be in prison. This guy that's giving Trump all this trouble, he should be in prison. In prison. Indicted, convicted, and in prison. But we, the people, got to get off our couch potato positions and stop watching the fake news and actually start to talk to our neighbors and put the real criminals, members of the bar, in prison. There are very few attorneys that I would ever trust with my life or my property. One is Thomas Mesereau. Two is Susan Yu. They're in Los Angeles. Another one is Michael Mins. He's in Houston, Texas. He's the guy that got 2 IRS attorneys disbarred for committing fraud in the court in an IRS case. That's Michael Mins in Texas. And then there's one named Peter Lumptavas in Nitty. So that's where we're at. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of attorneys. I only know 4 that I would trust. And I have at least a dozen cousins who are attorneys, and I wouldn't trust them because I know them well enough to know I wouldn't trust them. I have a nephew who's an attorney. I wouldn't trust him. I might trust him to get me a milkshake, but I wouldn't trust him with my property or my life. It's a sad state of affairs, but it isn't going to change unless we, the people, start forming our own grand juries under that guy, let's see his face, Justice Antoine Scalia.
Italian.
He is an Italian, that's true. He wrote the majority opinion in U.S. versus Williams, which was not new law. It was just reconfirming, because there had been a case where the people had formed their own grand jury, indicted, the sheriff carried out the indictment, law enforcement carried out the indictment, and then Mr. Williams said, hey, you can't indict me, only a judge can appoint a grand jury. No, we the people, 13 to 23 of us, can form our own grand jury. And unfortunately for Cliven Bundy, most of the 52 other ranchers that have been run off their land by the Senator Harry Reid and the criminals of the FBI and the Bureau of Land Management, most of them are either so elderly now or they've already died and their kids have given up and moved away and left the ranch. Because really, 160 acres of desert land without grazing rights around it is pretty much worthless. You can't grow enough food. There's that rotten criminal, Senator Harry Reid, who's, I should say ex-Senator Harry Reid, is not a senator anymore, but he should be indicted. He should be in prison. And he had the balls to call Bundy the most God-fearing, down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth man I've ever met in the last 20 years. Just a real genuine, good old cowboy. not very learned in the law, but he did study the Constitution once they came after him. And he read the Constitution. He says, where does it say the federal government can own land in a state, except for courthouses and military institutions? They can't own land. And he brought up the Taylor Grazing Act. I would like to let you hear from Daniel Dizak. We did a great show with Daniel Dizak. And I want to go about 20 minutes into it, show you what he said about the California crooked judges, and then I'll be back here with Shane Buczek live here this Wednesday. So stick around. There he is.
I have asked for the impeachment of the former Chief Judge of the Ninth Circuit, Alex Kaczynski, who was recently featured on a 60 Minutes fluff piece by Leslie Stahl for improper conduct, including but not limited to taking bribes from Charles Schwab.
Now you just brought up Schwab. Can we see we've got a shot.
It's the face sheet of the lawsuit.
Just the face sheet. And it's Daniel D. Zizek, plaintiff, versus Charles Schwab, Molly C. Dyer, Alex Kaczynski, Kim McLean Wardlaw, Richard A. Paz, Marcia S. Berzon, Mary Margaret McCowan, Alan Rothenberg, Ronald M. George, somebody you mentioned a lot in the first show you were on.
Yeah, he's the former Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court.
Eric M. George, his son, William M. Wardlaw, who does a lot of fundraising for certain Democratic folks, right?
Right. He's with a company called Freeman Spogli. Mr. Spogli was a former ambassador to Italy under the Obama administration, and he raises money in offices in Century City in New York City. But he was a big Democratic fundraiser for the Obama campaigns, both presidential campaigns and other Democratic candidates. And he's married to Kim McLean Wardlaw. And both he and Kim Wardlaw, in my opinion, per the lawsuit, received bribes from Charles Schwab or his related companies to affect my litigation. So I've named, in that caption, there are several Ninth Circuit judges named, and I've named some of their spouses because they're aware of the corruption of their spouses, judicial spouses. So I had no choice but to name them, in my opinion.
For aiding and abetting?
For aiding and abetting and being conspiracy and interfering with the unlawful processes of the court. Obviously, a judge can't have, federal judge or a state judge in a legal matter, when there's litigation, cannot have a financial conflict of interest, such as bribery. And if their spouses are aware of it, they're complicit in it. So that's why I named Stephen Berzon, who's a well-known labor lawyer, employment lawyer in the Bay Area. His wife is Marcia Berzon. They got illicit contributions, financial contributions for Charles Schwaber's entities to affect litigation. Kim McLean Wardlaw's husband, Bill Wardlaw, got illicit campaign illicit payments from Schwab entities. I didn't name Mr. Kaczynski, Judge Kaczynski's wife, but apparently she's aware of it. She should have. I could name her in the lawsuit.
You could. Do you remember a guy? Did you ever hear of Charlie Sprinkle?
No.
He was on this show 3 times. He sued Governor Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Nancy Reagan. He sued the cop that pulled him over and gave him a ticket for not having license plates and not having a driver's license. He sued the cop's wife. He sued the cop's supervisor, the supervisor's wife, all the way up to Governor Reagan. And he won. It went on for 2 years, and he said finally they sent guys in black SUVs to his house.
Wow.
Came knocking on his door, and he was like, I got the gun close by the door in case I have to shoot it out with these guys. But it didn't come to that. They opened the door, and they talked very politely, and they said, Mr. Sprinkle, would you please drop Nancy Reagan and all the wives? They had nothing to do with your speeding ticket. And he told them, I'll take it under advisement.
Right. Well,
but he never lost that case, and the judge finally dismissed the no license plate because he was traveling in his private conveyance. He was not driving a taxi or an 18-wheeler in commercial traffic.
Right.
And most people don't even understand what I'm talking about, but just go look up that. His name was Sprinkle, Charlie Sprinkle.
Yeah.
He won. You might win, but he sued all the spouses.
You know,
so you could sue all the spouses.
I'm very careful about who I name in a lawsuit. There has to be a legal and factual basis for it, and I wouldn't name.
So you wouldn't go as broad as Charlie did?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know the specifics of his case, but I'm suing the spouses because they are complicit and in conspiracy or collusion.
They're actively involved.
With making sure that I can't exercise my proper legal remedies, and those are torts, and I deserve compensation. As you know, you can't get damages against judges generally because they have immunity in most situations. But their spouses are not immune from damages. If they're in conspiracy or collusion with judges who happen to be their spouses, they are accountable in damages. And if they know that their judicial spouses are being bribed by someone like Charles Schwab, they have a duty to come forward and say to their spouse, I don't want to be part of it. In fact, most of the spouses, by and large, are trained in the law, either are attorneys or inactive attorneys, or have legal training, so they know better than to allow their judicial spouses to violate the Constitution of both the United States and the Constitution of California.
Spoken like one learned in the law. Charlie Sprinkle wasn't learned in the law, but he named the spouses for giving aid and comfort to the cop that was breaking the law, to the cop supervisor that was breaking the law, all the way up to Ronald Reagan. And he didn't collect any money, but his case for his no license plate, no driver was dismissed. And I had him come back in the second show like you've done, and you brought these papers showing your letters, and this one's to Honorable Sidney R. Thomas, Chief Judge in Billings, Montana, who's, I believe, now the presiding judge of the 9th District.
He's the chief judge, and he's under impeachment investigation also. I've also filed an ethics complaint against him, which has been assigned to actually a very good judge of the 9th Circuit, Stephen Reinhardt, I'm sure by special assignment of Chief Justice Roberts. So he's under, he deliberately with others delayed the filing of the ethics complaint. It took me approximately a month or more to get it filed. It was a great struggle. I had to write letters to President Trump and all sorts of other people. Finally, they filed it, and it was assigned to Stephen Reinhardt. It's still under submission. So I'm alleging that he is in conspiracy with various judges to not have rulings on my case. In the letter you're looking at, I put him on notice in February of this year that there have been several appeals in the 9th Circuit. There have been a deliberate non-ruling of things. I've been put in a black hole. In other words, I have motions pending on these appeals and other proceedings going on, and they won't rule. So
yeah, and what happened right after we did the first show? You said they wouldn't even give you a case number back then. And after that first show, so is Christine Fox?
What happened was
willing to come and answer a couple of questions? We're live on TV, and we don't have more than another 10 minutes.
Okay, so first what I have to do is have a file number that she needs to be speaking on.
The file number you want the file number? It's a Buczek case. The file number, your case number or your file number? I think
you have our file number, but are you saying this live?
Yeah, we're on TV live right now, and I'm trying to find out if she's running a foreclosure mill because they don't have the original note, and the assignment is from a firm that didn't exist anymore when the current bank got it, and it's index number 808135/2015. And
in which county is that, sir?
Erie.
Erie County.
Erie. Okay, hold on one second and I'll get it right away.
Because we're on live TV. We can't stay on much longer.
Okay, hold on.
We're talking to the plaintiff's attorney, Christine L. Fox's secretary in New York.
Batavia, New York. It's a little town outside of Buffalo. It showed up with 2 security guards bringing her in, 2 security guards going out. And
they need 2 security guards to guard Christine Fox going in and out?
And I believe they're like city or county marshals or whatever, where they actually follow her out to her car and follow her back into the car because of all the fraud she's involved in, so she wants to be protected.
Right. Well, I haven't had a chance to ask her, is she running a foreclosure mill?
And I doubt she's going to come on the phone, but we'll see.
Well, we've been waiting now for a good 9-10 minutes while you were listening to Daniel Dizak explaining how crooked the California justices are up to the state Supreme Court. We've been dialing the plaintiff's attorney on this HSCB bank or alleged bank. What we found out in Cindy Brown's case, by the way, in Orange County, is that all the attorneys keep changing that make an appearance. They never send the same attorney twice, but they all come from the same address, called Professional Way in Irvine, California. And just this week, federal Judge David O'Carter in the Ronald Reagan Courthouse in Orange County in Santa Ana was told by a United Nations representative he better do something about the hundreds of homeless people that are filling up dry riverbanks.
Sir?
Yes, over here.
Okay,
Yes.
I apologize, but she's still on the phone, but she knows that she has a message. And do you have a phone number that she can reach back out to?
I certainly do. Have her call me back at area code 805-928-1100. The name is William.
Okay, and is that address?
William Wagner is the name. And the name of the show is On, O-N, second, S-E-C-O-N-D, Thought, T-H-O-U-G-H-T. You can find it on YouTube, but we're doing this live on Comcast Cable right now in California. So we've only got a few minutes left. I have two questions. One, is she running a foreclosure mill? Second, does she have the actual wet ink note on the Deborah Buczek case, B-U-C-Z-E-K, and that case number was 808135 is the index number. It started in 2015.
Okay, and you said that if she had the actual what? You were breaking up there.
Mortgage note, the actual wet ink mortgage note, not a copy, but the original one that Deborah signed.
Okay.
And my other question
And
is,
sir, your phone number is
805.
Do you have another one?
805-928-1100.
Is that direct?
Yeah, that's a direct line. You won't get anybody but me.
Okay. And was there another question you said you had?
Yeah, how does the current banking institution she's representing as plaintiff's attorney, how do they get an assignment from an institution that was defunct and non-existent at the time the assignment was given?
Okay.
And you might add a third question. Why does it not show up, or does it show up in the Erie County records, that a transfer of assignment? So there's three simple questions I would just like an answer, because this doesn't look like an honest, above ground, above the table transaction.
Okay. And one more time, just repeat the index number so I make sure I have that correct.
Index number 808135.
You got it. And that was Erie. Got it.
That's County of Erie. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Well,
Bye-bye.
we tried to reach the judge. We tried to reach the judge's clerk. We tried to reach plaintiff's attorney. I didn't know she had two marshals guarding her going in and out of the courthouse. I mean, she must have made a lot of homeowners really angry.
On the last hearing of February 9, 2008, they even brought, I believe, I wasn't around, I left right after the hearing, but they brought two marshals up to escort the attorney up that was representing my mom to please vacate. And the attorney, which is a great question, we probably should call the attorney up and why he didn't file any discoveries or any motions. It's even in the transcript.
Do you have his number?
Yes, I do. I have.
Why don't you dial him? We'll ask the defense,
attorney.
his mother's, Shane's mother's.
He took the
attorney.
money though. Well, yeah.
They always take the money.
We need some money here. We need some money. But
Yeah.
it produced absolutely nothing. It's even in the order.
These are not rich people. They don't have $2,000 or $3,000 to throw away just so the attorney can get a down payment on a new BMW or whatever he's spending it on. but it seems to me there should have been some discovery motions filed.
And he filed none. He chose
Are you
not to.
absolutely certain he filed none? And now he's
None.
dragging his feet about filing the appeal.
And yeah, and he's trying to let the time expire so he can say, oh, God, you're out of time.
Call him. We only got about 5 minutes left and we're going to be off the air. You see, you're watching real drama as it happens. This is not fake news. We're really trying to get these attorneys to answer questions. I know they won't because I know their MO. Matthew Lazaro. And if you notice, if we can flash that screen up, they both claim a title of nobility. Esquire is actually the lowest rank under King, Queen, Lord.
Yep. Hello?
Hello, this is William Wagner in California. Can I speak to Matthew Lazaro, please?
Actually not in the office for today.
Oh.
I can give you an email, or you can leave a message with me.
I'll leave a message. I'll leave a message. This is William Wagner. I simply want him to call me back at 805-928-11.
Give me 1 second. Let me catch up with you. Let me see if I have you in my system.
You don't. You don't have me in your system. It's 805-928-1100. I want to know why he didn't file motions for discovery in Deborah Buczek's case, and why he's waiting till the appeal period has lapsed and it's too late. Why didn't he file an appeal? These are poor people. They don't have a lot of money.
Are you an attorney?
I am not a bar-carded attorney. No, I am not. I'm on a live television show right now in California. We're live on the air on Comcast Channel 25 locally. You can't get it there in New York State. But we're live on television. I'm with Deborah's son, Shane Buczek, and I just have a simple question. Why didn't he file motions for discovery? Why has he waited this long to file an appeal? Those are real simple questions.
She hung up on you.
Hello?
She hung up on you.
Oh, well. So that was the attorney, but the attorney's secretary. No reason to call her back. I'm not going to harass her. So that's pretty much our show for today. I would like to show you my edited interview with Mount Vernon. Actually, was George Washington's place. I'm not going back to what I forgot before. George Washington, he missed his Mount Vernon, his comfort home, and spent a lot of time in tents on many campaigns. But when it was all over, he asked Congress to grant him what in effect became the Northwest Territory, which was like all of the state of Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, as his payment. He wanted like 4 or 5 states worth of land. And he'd been out there because as a young George Washington, he had gone west and done surveying. The Indians didn't understand what he was doing. They thought he was probably a little crazy because he came out with these sticks and these instruments and he's aiming here and aiming there. And the Indians probably thought, what is this paleface doing? They had no clue. He was dividing up their Indian common law land and getting ready to parcel it off into states for some people that those Indians would never meet, but their Indian children would have to fight later on. I have one question. I didn't ask Cliven Bundy. I wish I'd asked him. He made a great deal of mention of preemptive rights by beneficial use when his horse pulling his great-great-grandfather's wagon stopped and drank from the Virgin River there near Bunkerville. That gave him a prescriptive right. He started establishing rights. I get that, and I'm not arguing he's wrong. But I'm wondering if the Indians passing through, their horse stopped and drank some water, and the Indians ate some tortoises. Didn't they also have preemptive established rights? I don't know. I meant to ask Cliven, and we got off on something else. Do you have something else you want to get on there? Because we're down to the last few minutes.
Just one last thing.
Go ahead, Shane.
What we did in this HSBC case, we filed a lawsuit in the federal court in the Western District of New York. The federal judge is William Scrutiny in the Buffalo jurisdiction. We're way out here in California. and he's been sitting on it now since 2016. Just recently, we filed a new motion on February the 2nd, 2018, asking the police serve this motion to all these criminals making all these false statements. We have 21 defendants. We went after the
Rosicki and Associates?
Yes, and all their attorneys. There's probably 7 attorneys involved in this case.
Carol L. Lockwood, an officer of HSBC, and an individual, Rose Viana Rosicki and Rosicki, Cynthia G. Rosicki, Thomas P. Rosicki, Kenneth Sheehan, an attorney and individual. Oh, you named them also as an individual.
Yes.
Not just in their official capacity, but in their personal.
Right.
You want them to pay out of their own pocket.
Right. Well, what was interesting is Jacob Shue from Soteris claimed he had a note, the original note, which he didn't. He committed perjury.
How do you know he didn't have the original note?
Well, we asked him to sign everything under the penalties of perjury, and he refused to do it. And he refused. But the thing I want to tell you is William McCaffrey's affidavit, he did a forensic on a note. He says impossible for him to know because it's been sold back in 1994. Yeah, if you want to just take a...
That's a lot of defendants, Shane. I mean, it cost a lot of money just to serve all those people.
Well, what I want to tell you is I don't want to say that the federal court is basically aiding and abetting because the case was filed 2 years ago and we're still waiting for them. We put our second motion in. If I could go ahead and maybe just scroll here. Second motion for order directing the service by the U.S. Marshal's Office, and that was served on February the 2nd, 2018, and it's still sitting on the docket.
Yeah,
and
less than
no
3
movement.
weeks ago. Wow.
Yeah, so we put a second motion in, and it's been sitting there now since 2016 with no movement. So it's kind of frustrating, and it's very aggravating.
I have the Richard Fine interview here. I want to thank you, Shane, for coming all the way from Buffalo, New York to sunny, freezing California. I still can't get over that. It's 68 in Buffalo while it's 42 and going below freezing in California. It's like God is turning the weather upside down to shake these criminals out of their nests or something. It's like God's telling us something here. Be a cold day in hell before these people will escape God's justice. But everybody I talk to, it's just massive fraud in the home foreclosure racket. And it's one of the reasons I refuse to go back and be a real estate salesman, because so many of the homes have been illegally taken. I don't want to touch something. It brings bad karma to sell a home that's been fraudulently stolen from somebody. Just turns my stomach. We're losing the land piecemeal. Bundy hanging on to his grazing rights. But he had to do 700 days of wrongful imprisonment by the federal criminals, the BLM, the FBI. You know, thank God some of the sheriff deputies finally stepped in and told them, this thing is over, please leave. And then the BLM, that's the Bureau of Land Management. You know, the image of Smokey the Bear that we used to, you think of BLM, we think of Smokey the Bear, the friendly bear with the, you know, the Mountie hat on. It's all gone. What we're going to see at the beginning. This is Richard Fine, private interview at his new home in Ventura County.
They think of that court.
You won't get the end of it, but he's talking about,
as they've been
there's this
taught to
cat.
think of it. They think of that as the third
Thanks for watching,
independent
people.
part of government.
Right, I think most of us do.
Yeah, but underneath, that's not really true.
Really?
Really, because you have to look as to how does that institution come into being. In the Constitution, it's set up as the judiciary, the third independent part of government. But who's in it? An institution doesn't exist by itself. An institution exists by people. It's populated by people. Now, how do those people get there? Because those people are the people that are making the decisions. So we have to look back to see how did they get there and what are the influences upon them. So the first thing that we look at, whether it be the federal system or the state system, is how does someone become a judge? Let's take the federal system. Federal judges are appointed for life.
Yeah, we know that.
Okay, they're appointed by the president with the advice and the consent of the Senate. But how do they get to be appointed? They get to be appointed because their senator recommends them to the president. So now, how do they get to know the senator? Usually, that's going to be the senator knows them through political contributions or some types of things that they've done for the senator, being a member of the party, being something to the senator favors or something else on this order. So immediately, the person that is going to be selected by the senator has a political viewpoint that is the same as the senators, may have given the senator contributions, so they're locked in politically with the senator. Then the process goes that the president looks into them, they get vetted, and all of a sudden they get appointed. So now you have a federal judge who's going to have the same political philosophy as the senator, as the president, who is now going to interpret what is known as the, quote, rule of law. The rule of law is nothing more